This is Joshua Hart for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by Gareth A Davies here this morning on Zoom. Gareth, it's a big week finally here. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn set to fight this Saturday as long as we have no repeats of 2.5 years ago this over the next week. Excited for this weekend?
I am. There's one reservation that Chris Eubank Sr. is continuing to say that he doesn't think the fight will go ahead. I don't know if you've heard that.
Hmm.
Um,
Seen it all,
but
Gareth.
I hope he's wrong. That's all I'm saying. I hope he's wrong. Yeah, I'm really excited for fight week. Heading down to the grand arrivals later today, at the Pelagon in Canary Wharf. Can't wait for that. It's going to be a great event. It's a great undercard as well, by the way. Chev Clark, Vidal Riley, a fight we've been wanting to see for maybe a couple of years now. That's touch and go. I've got Vidal Riley as a marginal favourite, but it is very much the big puncher against the boxer. I'm really looking forward to that. Brandon Glanton and Chris Billam-Smith. Don't write Glanton off. He's very, very dangerous. 4-5 with the WBC, these two. I think Glanton arguably gets a late stoppage in this. That's what I'm going for. Really dangerous fight for Billam-Smith. I've written him off before. I said I wouldn't write him off again. I'm not writing him off, but it's a dangerous fight for him. Great opportunity for Aaron McKenna against Liam Smith. Aaron McKenna, 19-0, 10 knockouts, kind of a rising star of the scene. Liam Smith, hard, rugged, aging now a little bit. 36, is he? 37? He's certainly coming on in age. And so the undercard's brilliant. I'm forgetting someone here. Who am I forgetting?
Anthony Yard versus Lyndon Arthur 3
Oh man,
trilogy.
Anthony Yard, Linton Arthur. I didn't forget them. I was talking about them earlier on. Great opportunity for Anthony Yard to show that he's back to his best. Lyndon Arthur's a difficult opponent when he gets his angles and he gets a long, lean fighter. Brilliant jab on him. Great fight. What a great card it is. And you know, if Anthony Yard wins, it sets up the fight with Joshua Buatsi later in the summer or early autumn. And you know, when you've got Callum Smith and David Benavidez talks going on right now, Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol are going to have their trilogy. The light heavyweight division is set for an amazing year. So yeah, and that's before Ben and Eubank walk to the ring.
It's a great card. You mentioned Chris Eubank Sr. at the start and him believing the fight doesn't go ahead still. Obviously you were there last Wednesday at Michael Watson's Miracle Mile where Chris Eubank Jr. seemed to have a word with you and say, as a journalist, we should be, a word of authority. What was going through your mind in that moment, seeing how distressed Chris Eubank Sr. is by this fight? How were you feeling in that moment?
Well, I mean, I was taking in everything around us in that, you know, Senior's a very meticulous individual. He was using deep rhetoric, but also the emotion of a father, and also the emotion of a fighter, and also the emotion of a father who's lost a son. He's got Michael Watson to his left, who he's damaged in a fight. Nick Blackwell to his right, to his son damaged in a fight. Um, he the things he was saying make sense, which are we have weight divisions for a reason. He's talking about his son boiling down, but only to a certain weight and only being able to put 10 pounds on after making 160 pounds. He's talking about the disparity between weights, which is dangerous. There's no doubt about it. It's happened in history. Roberto Duran and Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Cal Brook and Gennady Golovkin, Amir Khan, Saul Canelo Alvarez, welterweight to middleweight. Chris is a big middleweight. Conor is not a big welterweight. There's a huge prize fight and money grab here. That there is the resonance of his own name being used. So what's going through my head is, and as I said to him at the time, all I said to him was about it's happened before with those different matchups, and also that I respect his opinion, and I do respect his opinion, and I understand where he's coming from. But I can't help myself being excited by the fight. I can't help the fact that it's crossing over into the mainstream. I can't help the fact that a 35-year-old and a 28-year-old want to earn what I understand to be £9 and £8 million respectively for a big prize fight. And I also feel, and Chris Eubank Sr. may disagree with me on this, If he was their age, he would have done the same.
Very interesting point you make there. Chris Eubank Sr. did an interview with us here at Seconds Out with my colleague Eamon Khan on the day.
He was very good, Eamon. Did a great interview with him. Well, he got it out straight away, and it went viral
Mm.
everywhere.
Yeah,
You
big
know.
big shout out to Eamon for that one.
Yeah, very good.
Really
Very, very.
phenomenal interview, very powerful interview, I guess you could say.
Very. And Chris was emotional as well, you see,
Mm.
which was the other reason. I've known Michael and Chris a very long time. I walked the marathon with Michael 22 years ago when we covered it every day, 2 pages in the Telegraph. I wrote a column from Michael midway through the day when we stopped in a tour bus and grew very close to him during that. And you know, it was a beautiful walk the other day. Bunsey, who wrote his book, was there. Who wrote the book with Michael was there. There was a lot of media there, a lot of attention, and in some way, Chris got on his soapbox, but it was very hard to disagree with him. And like you say, I did see the Seconds Out. The Seconds Out news story was kind of out before we'd even finished the walk, I think.
We've got a powerful team over here at Seconds Out, haven't we? We get the news out as soon as we can. One really interesting part of the interview,
Eamon's a Trojan, mate, never stops.
never stops. The one part of the interview that I found really interesting, I want to get your thoughts on it, is towards the back end, and I'd say the last like 2 or 3 minutes of it, Eubank Senior repeatedly says he will never be in Junior's corner, and goes on to call him things like a disgrace and everything, saying he must be mad. Seeing things like that, it's very unsettling, and there is a lot more to life than boxing, and we do hope they can rectify their relationship, regardless whether it's boxing or not, and Senior's there this weekend or not. It's a sad case to see, isn't it?
It is. I mean, look, they've got their disagreements. Junior had to break away from Scene. Remember, he was very dominant early in his career around him and did a lot of talking for him. And Chris is 35, coming up 36. He's a grown man, so he needs to make his own decisions. But you've got to remember that the hurt business is a very emotional process. It is people getting clattered. That's what it is. And it's a very brutal and at times, and well, and always inherently dangerous, but at times a very unforgiving business. People make a lot of money out. We're talking about stars of the sport. Remember, 17 million watched that first. Imagine 17 million watching a fight today and paying pay-per-view on it. I mean, it will happen at some point that you'll get those numbers for the right, and they'll strike gold with it. But it's very hard, as I say. I go back to the same point that it's never nice to hear Eubank Senior, but he's very honest. When he's saying his son's a disgrace, it's not. He's not a disgrace for having the fight. He's saying his son's a disgrace for cracking Conor with an egg and for his comportment, and it's just Chris being Chris, and Jude. They're both incredible characters, very resolute, very obdurate, very stubborn about their views on things and how they do things, which is what makes them these cool, calm, and calculated, low heart rate fighters when they're in the ring. It's what it's what makes them special. It's what makes them warriors, as Chris would say. It's what makes them born for this. So, Eubank Senior is someone we always listen to. He's a legend of the sport. He's a great human being, and I understand his concern. I respect his concern, as I say said to you at the very beginning. I respected his views on the day. Was not going to stand there arguing with him about the things I will say to you now. That his son's earning a huge amount of money. That he may have done the same himself. I wasn't about to do that when we were doing the Miracle Mile with Michael Watson. It wasn't the time or place.
Absolutely. Just lastly on Eubank Senior and Junior here, how big of a mental block and distraction could the words of Senior be to Junior this week, going into the biggest fight of his career and seeing the things that his father was saying to the media? How big of a distraction could that be? And how big of an impact could it have on his game plan, I guess you could say?
Well, it'll either stir him up to prove something, or it might have had an effect on him. But I think certainly for any son, your father's support would be a help. It always is, of course it is. I mean, we're all sons. We've all got fathers. So to have your father's support would it augment and enhance maybe his scaffolding, you can call it scaffolding around his mental security going into this fight. But physically, his father can't be in the ring with him. So when the bell rings, it makes no difference whatsoever. I still have Eubank as a big favourite going into Saturday night, the thing is about him, he'll have his game plan this week. He'll have his mental game plan. He might take a vow of silence all week. He could but he will. Everything he does for a reason. I say, cool, calm, and calculated. The emotional side of the broadcast, and the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree, and I've said that to you before, is that the emotional side of the Benns, because their heart's on their sleeve. They're impassioned about everything. So. Eubank Jr. will have he will have his pathway this week, and he will stick to his line, whatever it's going to be.
You mentioned that you make Eubank Jr. a big favourite going into the fight. What are the reasons for that? Why do you make him such a big favourite?
Experience, experience at world level, bigger man, physically bigger man. No one's really beaten him up until he was knocked out by Liam Smith. He had a fantastic fight with George Groves. Yeah, I had his record up earlier. I'm going to pull it up because we don't, and he hits hard as well, and he can be a terror. I want his record up. I did have it up here earlier. Apologies for this.
I want to say it's
But when you look,
3-1.
34-3.
Okay.
But the fine victory over Liam Smith. He gave Billy Joe Saunders terrors years ago, even though he lost that fight. He had a great fight with George Groves, even though he lost it. Arthur Abraham, Avni Yildirim. I'm trying to think of some of the others. It's gone out of my head right now. James DeGale. I know James was at the end of his career, but he's been in lots of big fights, and I think he's got real experience, and he's handled himself well at 12 stone. Remember, he's handled himself against guys who are coming in against him at 185 pounds, well, after or maybe 180 pounds, walking around at 180 pounds. So we may find, even though he's 36 this year, that when we watch the fight, we just go, there's weight divisions for a reason. Ben comes and really tries to attack him early, but he is definitely a welterweight. He's a welterweight fighting a middleweight stroke super middleweight. And we may find that his barrages, his attacks, those vicious attacks and that movement that he's got might be good for 3 or 4 rounds, but if Eubank repels that easily, it could be Eubank taking over in the fight, and then Ben, who's younger, loads of tensile strength, great conditioning, comes strong again at the end, and Eubank hangs on. But I've got Eubank winning on points.
I was just about to ask, in how do you see Eubank winning? But you say points. You don't think there's any chance that he possibly clips Conor Benn and stops
Well,
him?
you can't write Conor Benn off either, by the way. I'm just giving my opinion on how I think the fight may go. We don't know. Eubank may not have much left, and Conor Benn may stop him. The fact he's got to make 160 pounds and he can only go to 170. And remember, he's got duties. He's going to weigh in on the morning on the Friday. Then they're going to go to the Islington Design Centre in the afternoon and do the weigh-ins. He can't make £10 more until Saturday morning. So these are factors that may play into the fight. These are the factors that Eubank Sr is concerned about, that maybe we should be talking about anyway, as should these things be allowed to happen, because his body is going to be in a certain state for a certain amount of time, and it may affect him on the night. Ben may find the sweet spot and may hurt Eubank and so on. We can't rule anything out happening, but I'm just talking with the experience or what is standard in boxing is that the bigger guy has advantages. The heavier man has advantages, the naturally bigger guy. And I think we're forgetting that Eubank hits hard. He may stop Ben. Ben hasn't fought at that level yet, in my view.
You think there's a big concern for Conor Benn that obviously he's not been on this type. I know Eubank's not necessarily been on this type of stage either. This is a whole new type of stage for both, but Eubank has that experience of being in the big nights and sold out arenas, whereas Conor hasn't quite done that in his career yet. Do you feel there is?
No, I think he was. No, I think where he was getting there anyway. 2.5 years ago. He doesn't worry about. I think he loves the limelight because he wants to prove something as a fighter. I think more than anything, what Conor Benn's gone through is a very hard emotional time over the last 2.5 years with the clomiphene tests and the hearings and all of those kind of things. I think that's where he suffered. I think he's built for the big time. They both are. You know, they're the sons of their fathers. They've been used to the public eye for a very long time. They're both comfortable in it. They're both brilliant with the media. So no, I don't think that's an issue for either of them. The big occasion on the actual night, I think they'll both relish. I think Conor Benn is relishing this moment. The toughest bit for him is going to be in against a bigger guy, and he wants to resonate the Ben name after a loss and a draw 35 and 33 years ago.
Just looking at the undercard, I know we've mentioned all the fights on the undercard. Which one out of the lot of them do you believe will possibly steal the show? It's going to be very hard to steal the show, but which one has the biggest potential to steal the show and be an absolute belter of a fight?
I think Glanton and Billum Smith. But you could also say McKenna and Smith as well. So a Smith fight
A
maybe.
Smith fight. I like that. I like that, Gareth. Just moving away from this weekend and looking at the weekend just gone. Sunday night we saw Ben Whittaker back in the ring, avenging his very controversial draw to Liam Cameron back in October last year. I know you were there on the night with Talksport. What were your thoughts on Ben Whittaker's performance and more importantly the actions after the fight, which had a bit of a mixed response on social media from people?
Well, to go through it all, I mean, Ben Whittaker was booed into the ring. It was a huge support for Liam Cameron, understandably, because he's a folkloric figure, a hero with a lot of the boxing fans, given the way he is as a man and the narrative arc of his life. Ben Whittaker has played the heel brilliantly, and I hope he continues to do so. He's got so many followers, 3 million on social media, and that's a massive advantage to him. It's a coup for him as a fighter. You can't buy that kind of support or even dislike. He's flashy and brash. He carried it all into the ring with him. He put on a brilliant performance. He showed us a bit of the pizzazz that he possesses. He showed us, which is what I wanted to see, and he showed all of us that he's got power. Optically, some people will be unhappy with the stoppage by Howard Foster, but my instincts at the time, while being involved, was that it was the right stoppage. I think Liam was genuinely hurt. That's just my opinion. They didn't remonstrate too much afterwards. People probably wanted to see 10,000 in the audience. The hundreds of thousands watching at home probably wanted to see a more conclusive end, but I'm happy 10 seconds earlier rather than 10 seconds later, because we don't want to see our guys damaged. What was frustrating probably for Liam Cameron's team was that they were looking to take him into the late rounds, hence the 10-round, 12-round fiasco, and that he was clearly covering up early on to want to take Whittaker into deeper waters, and I think that was the game plan. So they weren't able to enact that game plan, which would have frustrated them. His post-fight, Whittaker's post-fight antics, that was the relief of a fighter who has been under pressure, what must feel like the world on his shoulders for 6 months. And we saw that when he broke down in tears and emotion at the press conference afterwards. The relief and the pain, the humanity in the man that he's gone through. So I think that was he actually apologised for his overreaction. Spitgate was dealt with. Whitaker was dealt with straight away. Grant Smith's a great man. They were unhappy with him sticking his head through the ropes and having a pop. He didn't need to do that. But I think it was just the effusion of probably the hurt he'd felt for 6 months of being called Whitaker. But Cameron gave him difficulties. There's no doubt about it in Riyadh. But Whitaker has put right the wrongs in Birmingham on Saturday night of that first fight.
Just lastly from me here, who would you like to see Ben Whittaker fight next? Looking at that light heavyweight division, we know how good it is. What names stand out for you?
Oh, that's a very good shout, and I hadn't thought about that. Look, he's only 10 fights in. You don't want to rush him.
Hmm.
It's not time for him to be in the. I mean, we've just talked about that top six in the heavyweight division. David Morrell's just been lined up with someone as well, hasn't he?
Yes, I think there's an undefeated Russian that he's just been lined up for that July 12th
Uh,
show. Is it Iman
uh,
Katev?
which one?
I think it's Iman Katev or something like that.
I'm just having a look.
I know he's a Russian light heavyweight. I want to say he's
Yeah, Imam Katayev, who's six with the IBF, seven with the WBC, which is what it will be, I think. So yeah, Imam Katayev. Yeah, I don't know a lot about him, unfortunately.
no,
I will have a look at that as that. Obviously, that's the July
12th.
12th card, isn't it, in New York? That's a bonkers sequence there. July the 11th, Taylor Serrano 3 in New York. July the 12th, if it is on July the 12th, Usyk against Dubois here at Wembley Stadium. And then later on in the night, the July 12th card with Zepeda and Shakur, Hamza Shiraz and Belanga. Oh my God. And this, I mean, talk about stacked cards. What a stacked 2 days that's going to be. Incredible.
So just going back to Whitaker, what about domestically? Are there any names domestically that you'd like to see him fight? Willie Hutchinson, maybe?
Phew, yeah, that's a great fight. Callum Simpson, a light heavy. I
Yeah.
think that's a great fight.
I don't think
Um,
it's too hard to make either, both being boxer fighters.
yeah, Simpson was there on Saturday night. That either of those would be great. Remember, he's only 11 fights in, so they're going to have to build him very carefully from here because by fight 18, 19, 20, he could even be a star in the United States, in my view. I think he's capable of being a global star. As I said to his father, Tony, Big Tone, on Saturday night, all this booing is brilliant for him in a way because he's got something. He's got the X factor, and people want to see you get knocked out as a result. And I don't mean that in a kind and an unkind way, but that's how the public is when you've got a flashy fighter, so they come to watch. But now he's proven and shown that he's got power as well, and he's stepping in his punches, and he's got this alliance with his new coach, Andy Lee, who I think is very good for him. World's his oyster.
Well, Gareth, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. Good to catch up. And we look forward to this weekend. Ben Eubank, going to be an absolute, it's going to be fight of the year.
Could well be. Could well be. Great to see you as always, Josh.
Perfect.